Hello everyone. In this video we are going to talk about automatic searching and query and lookup for data in an Excel sheet. So here I got this data from Wikipedia, the list of the top 10 countries in terms of GDP. Their GDP is in $1 trillion USD, the population and GDP per capita. And let's say I'm interested to know what's the GDP of Japan. So one simple way without any lookup is, of course, if I want to know what's the GDP of Japan, I go to find here and then search the word Japan. And that's what it is doing. That's the same thing that the command match does. It tells me, hey, it is in row number 10. And then once I know where Japan is, I'm going to go to the corresponding column for row 10 and find the GDP. Now, of course, very simple, but once your sheet becomes really big with lots of data, and especially when these columns are extending way beyond, maybe it's not as convenient, right? Because you have to move like this a lot to the left and right and keep it at the same row, although still not a big deal to me. But if you want to do this a little bit more automatically, and I'll show you better applications when we get to lookup, then this will save your time. So let's say, again, I want to know what's the GDP of Japan. So one thing I can do is, first I find where Japan is. It is in which row, and then go and from the column that I'm interested in, pass that row number 10 to it, and it finds it for me. So what I will do is, first I use the command match, and I say, hey, match for me the word Japan. Now, in this list, and tell me where Japan is in this list. And I enter, and boom, I get an error. Well, I did not expect that. I expected it to work, and I'll tell you why it doesn't work. Because Excel does not like what it is trying to find to be something that you directly type. It wants to read it from a cell. So although, yes, you're looking for Japan, don't type it in the command. This is what you need to do. You need to type that Japan somewhere, right? Let's say this is what I'm going to find. And then when you come here, instead of typing the Japan, refer to a cell which contains Japan, like that. And now say, hey, now go find it for me. And it says, good, it is 9. Now you might say, well, Japan is in row 10. Why is it says 9? The reason is we search it from what? From Germany all the way to United Kingdom. We did not include this list country, right? We did not include the name of the column. Okay, if you look back again here, we used what? We used from Germany all the way down to United Kingdom. If we wanted to exactly match that number, we have to include everything like this, from E1 to E11. And now, when you do it from E1 to E11, now you will get 10. Okay, so pay attention to the range that you are seeking. Now, let me tell you some interesting things about this match before I move any further. So one of the things is this. If I have this same list of countries, okay, I paste them somewhere else, and I shuffle it around a little bit. So let's say I bring this United States, put it in place of China, bring the India, put it in place of US, bring that maybe Italy here, make this China, right? So I just shuffle around. And now let me redo the same thing, right? I want to know the location, relative location of Japan in this list, right? Or China in this list, doesn't matter. So here, let's take a look. I say this is equal to match of, find for me Japan in which list? In this list, right? Well, it says 9, which is not bad. It is here. Now, just for the sake of experiment, let me change it and make it Italy. It says 8. Now, is Italy 8? No, it is what? It is 7. You see? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It says 8. Now, let me change it to something else. Maybe India. I change it to India, and this one did not even change. Right? I'm looking for India. It still says 8, which is on China here. So it is returning nonsense, isn't it? But if I do it here, look, I do the same search for India, but in this original list. Let's see what this one returns. 7, which is exactly right. That's location 7 here. This one says 8, which is definitely wrong because India is in position 2 in that list. So why is it the same word, the same list, one of them is working, the other one is returning nonsense? The reason is sorting. Okay, so sorting is the cause of the problem here. When you're looking here for this name in a list, the list has to be sorted. Okay, and this list is not sorted alphabetically. This list is, you're starting, well, let's see. So here, I went to sort from A to Z, and it is accepting it from me as Germany, United States, Brazil, Canada. So Microsoft Excel considers this sorted, you see? Here, let me take this and sort it. So sort it from A to Z, and it gives me the same thing as I have over here. And now if I say sort it from Z to A, it does this. Now, what is it here that is a little bit messed up, right? You clearly see that it's not really sorted. If we are looking into the first letter of that word, definitely United Kingdom and United States should be at the bottom of the list, right? And probably what, Brazil has to be on the top of the list. So why is it that when you're looking into sorting out letters or words, basically, it's not doing it? If you do it on a bunch of numbers, there is no problem, right? Here, look, I get these numbers, paste them, right? Now I say, hey, sort this for me from smallest to largest. There we go. Sort it from largest to smallest. There we go. You see, absolutely reasonable. But when I apply it to a bunch of names, right? Sort Z to A, complete nonsense. Sort A to Z, again, complete nonsense. Okay, so what is it doing? We'll get to this when we go and talk about strings and speech to text. Okay, but what I'm trying to tell you is, for this, from the perspective of Excel, this list is right now sorted. And when the list is sorted, the command match works just fine. You see, I say match, and let me get rid of this. And let me change this just so we can see it is working. France. So match for me in this France in this list to 11. And you see it's position 6, and that's 3, 4, 5, and 6. So it's working just fine. Right? And if I change it to anything else, for example, I make it like China, okay, now it's 5. So it is working fine because I apparently sorted this. Now, if I sorted this from A to Z, if I sort it from Z to A, is that still gonna work? Let's find out. So I'm going to change it, shuffle it around like this. And by the way, one good thing you probably saw, when I sorted this first column, it sorted the rest of the data associated with it. Okay, let me show you one more time. So here, look, I go A to Z. You see? So that's one of the smart features of Excel. When it does sort one column, it sorts the rest of the data with the column, and of course does not completely screw up your data. That's a good thing. So you see, as long as it is sorted from A to Z, apparently, it's not really, as we believe, it is working fine. But when I change this column from Z to A, sorted backwards, look, it does not work. Okay, so pay attention to what we are doing. Okay, the match has two limitations. One, the thing that you are searching, you cannot just type it, you have to select it from a cell. Two, the range you are trying to look into has to be sorted, right? And in case of names, it has to be sorted from A to Z here, okay? Otherwise, it doesn't work. Now, let's see what about numbers. So if I want to look into number 497 and I want to match that number with the list in the second column, which is here, do I get a reasonable result? It says 8. And guess what? 8 is not right here. Correct? It should be row 2, but it definitely gave me garbage. Why? Because this is not sorted by smallest to largest or largest to smallest. Now, what if I sort this out from smallest to largest? I did. And now really Japan is in this 4.97 is in location 8. Let me change it to another number, maybe 4. You see, now it's 7. I make it like 2.07. And it says 3. So you see, the sort needs the match needs the area it is searching to be sorted from smallest to largest number or A to Z if they are words. Again, why is it really not A to Z? We'll talk about it in a separate video, okay, when we get to strings. But right now, if we trust Excel that somehow this is sorted, then the command match does work. Okay, so we are learning the limitations of this command and how to work with them. Good. So that is about match. It gives me the relative row location in a list. Good. Let me tell you one other important nice thing that might be really useful to you before I go to index and the rest of it. And that is, if you want, you can select a set of data and give them a name. Okay, you can give them a name. So let's say, for example, here, let me sort this out back from A to Z, apparently. And here, you see, I have chosen this set of names of the countries, and then I can give them a name. So it's like declaring a variable. I get a bunch of values, and then I can give all of them a name. So when I come here and I'm trying to use those values in a formula, I don't need to say, hey, F3 to F6. No, I just say, for example, the top 4 GDPs or something like that. You see? So I can declare them like a variable. How? So here, let's say I select these countries, right? I selected all 10 of them, and then I right click and say what? Define a name. And then here it says refer to these cells from E2 to E11 as what? And you can call it whatever you want, right? Or let's say here I select some numbers here like 2, 3, 5, 7, and 9, correct? These are the prime numbers less than 10. So I select these guys, right click and say define a name, and I call them prime nums. Okay? Less than 10. That's a big name, isn't it? But that's okay, just sake of demonstration. And now look, anytime I select these guys in my equation, if I say equal to, if I select these guys, it's not going to say K4 to K8. It's not going to do that. Look what it does. You see? It is referring to those 5 cells as prime nums less than 10. Correct? So that's equivalent to saying K4 to K8. Now, what's the advantage of this? I'll tell you in a second when we go to look into Lookup. I'll tell you what's the advantage of naming a bunch of variables as one single variable, okay? Because that's an absolute referencing and that has its own advantages. But wait and bear up a little bit with me until we get there. So it seems like also some of this data is for some reason messed up. Let me see what happened to this here. Okay, so that was about match. Now, one more thing about match. One more thing. Let me tell you one more thing about match. Match has a third input. So you can pass to match what you're looking for and where to look into for, but you can also have what we call match type. What is that? Let me show you. So here I say number 4 and find this in this list for me. 2, 5, 4, 6, 8, 9, 11, 13, and 15. Correct? So find number 4 for me in that list, correct? Or number 6 or whatever number. So look, I type my test number and let's say it's 11, for example. So I say match number 11 in this list. And look what it does. It says location 7. Now let's look at location 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Well, it works. And was this sorted? Not really. Here it's not sorted. Okay. So now let's mess it up a little bit. Let's make this 3, for example. And make this like 1. And you see, this is working, right? Now, if I change this number to 6, it says location 4, which is right. If I change it to 1, then it gives me garbage. You see? Oh, wait. I made a big mistake. I just typed 1. Oh, I'm sorry. Here. Okay. So this guy is, the formula for it is I14 in that list. No, so it should return meaningful thing, right? So when I said 6, it did it. Now when I say 1, this guy should not return nonsense. It's not a number actually, but that's the same thing. It should tell me it's the last one, right? And you clearly see it involves K15, which is this guy. Why didn't? Again, because here I'm not sorting this. And if I go ahead and sort this from smallest to largest, it is working fine. Good, so we had this. What's the new thing? The new thing is, what if you don't, the number you type, what if this number that you type is not in that list at all? There is no exact match. So let's say here I say, well, 7. There is no 7 there, right? Look. But it returns something. It says 6. What does that mean? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It says number 6, which, by the way, is the 6th location, the 6th relative row, is the closest match to 7. Well, that wasn't an exact match, so what does that mean? Let me change it to something else. Let's say 10. So 10 is the 8th position. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It says it's 9. Why 9? because when you do the command match, as I told you, has a third input, which is called the match type. Now, you can omit it and not put it in, then Excel will pick one. But if you look here, there are three types of matches. If you put in 0, means exact match. If you say 1, means the largest match that is still less than your number. And if you want this match to work with the match type 1, there is a limitation. Your array must be sorted in ascending order. If your array is not sorting in ascending order, in descending or completely random, it's not going to work. And you can even say -1. -1 means what? It means the smallest number that is bigger than your number, and for that, you have to put it in what? In descending order. So if here I said 0, what do you think would happen? Find the exact match of number 10 in that list. It says, hey, I cannot find such a thing. But when I don't force it to go with exact match, what does it do? When it cannot find exact match, then it goes for match option 1. You see here it says match type. It goes for option 1, which is the biggest number smaller than 10, as long as this list is in ascending order, which it is. So it is going to work and give me what? Position 8, which is number 9, and of course 9 is the largest number in this list, smaller than 10, so that's the closest match, right? And for example, if I say, what about 15? It says the last one, of course. 11 is the closest to 15 in this list. That is smaller than 15, correct? You see, it is working. So it's either exact or less than. Now, as I said, and you can use decimals too, like for example, I say, how about 4.5? What's the closest to 4.5? And it says option 4, which by the way is number 4 actually. Okay, so you clearly see it is working. Now, if I'm looking into a number, as I told you, that is bigger than this or equal or bigger than this, then my match type should go to -1, and for that, I definitely need what? I definitely need to sort this into descending order, like this. So you see, when I do descending, definitely this guy does not work. But if here I provided the option of -1, means, hey, go into that list and look, the first number that is bigger than this, and that's the smallest that is bigger than this, return it. And it says, sure, location 5. Location 5 is what? Here, which by the way is number 5. If I change that to, let's say, 6.5, right? It says location 3, which is number 8. 8 is the smallest in this list that is still bigger than this. So you see, that's the match option, match control. Good. So we learned that what match can do and its limitations and match type and everything. Now we can use match in conjunction with the command index. What index does, since match returns a row position, it goes into that row, you give it a list, and then it finds the data which is in that row and on that list, on that column, and returns that value. So for example, I want to know what's the GDP of Italy, right? So first I say, well, the location of the Italy in this list is what? I say match, correct? And remember, since I want to search Italy, I cannot type Italy. I should have already typed it somewhere like this. Now I can do it. So look. Now I say this is equal to match of, oh, this is equal to, oh gosh. This is equal to match of Italy in what? In, of course, this list. Give me the relative location. And it says location 8, which is definitely here, correct? Now I say, good, but now tell me, you see the command index. And it needs the array and then the row number. So first you have to tell it where to look for and then which row. Okay, now what is the GDP? What is the GDP? In the GDP column, give me what? Give me where that relative position 8 is happening. So the intersection of 8's relative position and what? And column which I called ahead of time GDP. And it says sure it's 2.07. And you see that number here. Right? Now if I change this Italy to something else, say now what about India? There we go. You see? And now you see that that's the number. Now you might start to see the power of this command. If I wanted to change it to India, what should I do? If I didn't want to use these two commands, I have to go to find, type India, find where India is in this big list. If there is no duplicate, I find India, and then again go scroll down under the column of GDP and read it. And if I wanted something else, again go find where it is, go under, and you have to, it's more time consuming that. All I need to do is to come here and type in the new name, right? It does the job of clicking on the find, finding it, and then scrolling down under that column and reading it. It does all of that for you and just type the result here. So now you're probably starting to see why this is more automatic. Brazil is what? 1.87. Okay, so now you see when I combine index and match together, that's a very powerful thing. And it can give you something even better than that. So here, not only I can return 1.87, which is the GDP of that country. Maybe I'm interested in all of the data for that country, which is population as well as GDP per capita, right? Or let's say it's the name of a bunch of students in the school, and these are different information about them, address, age, which year they are, and so on and so forth. So I just look the name of the student and say, hey, bring me all of the info from that student, right? So I'm not just interested in his grade or her grade. I want everything about that person. Okay, and then it brings all of the rows. So how can you do that? Instead of bringing one single entry using the command index, how about bringing that whole row, right? So how can I do that? So this is the way to go about it. So look, instead of this is what you do. Since I'm going to look into what? Look into 3 values, right? I'm going to get 3 values. Here, I'm going to mark 3 homes that will be populated with the information of Brazil. I'm going to select, highlight 3 houses, 3 cells, and here say is equal to. Now, I typed that formula, but instead of saying only look into GDP and give me the location of Brazil, which is here, instead of just GDP, how about you look into all of this data? You see, so I pass it the whole matrix of data. Still, the row is going to be this relative position 3 or row number 4, but look into the whole thing and bring the result of that and populate it in these 3 cells. And since I'm bringing the data, and this data includes 3 numbers, I cannot put all the 3 numbers in one location. I have to paste them into 3 cells. If you remember from the previous lecture on arrays and matrices, the way to do this is to use what? Control, Shift, and then what? Enter. And now, boom, I get an error. Isn't that nice? Well, what happened here? So I did not expect this to happen, right? I did not expect this to happen that I get this error. So what happened here? Well, let's try it one more time. So here, let me get this off. And I'm going to get rid of these. I'm going to highlight these three. Say this is equal to index those, correct? And now if I do Control Enter, again, I'm going to get what? Problems, correct? Right? Why is that? I expect it to work, isn't it? No. Why? Because when you're doing that, not only now you have to provide the row number, which comes from the command match, you also need to provide a column number. And in this case, I do not want to provide a column number. I just want it to know that it is columns F, G, and H. So if you don't want to provide the column number, still you have to leave it as blank, not just completely ignore it. So index, yes, look into this area, fine. This row number, fine. For column number, you say comma, but for column number, you're not going to type anything. You just leave it as is. You just leave it as is, completely blank. Now let's see. Now it seems like this one is starting to act up, right? It's starting to behave. So let me do it one more time here. And it should work. Just I want to do it one more time with this new thing that I told you. You see here, I use the three of them. I say, look into all those areas for that row. And what? You clearly see here, I'm providing nothing. And now Control Shift Enter, and boom. Now I got it. You see, I got all these three data. Okay, so these are the important things that you need to do, right? Provide a blank column number and select as many cells as you need, and then do Control Shift Enter. Now you might wonder what would have happened if I selected 4 cells instead of 3. Right here, I selected 3, exactly as many as my search area, the number of columns in my search area. What happened if I used 4 cells? Still looking into 3 columns, but can I populate it into 4 cells? So let's see what happens. So look, if I say that, right, and do Control Shift Enter, let's see what happens. It does it, but where there is no data to fill in, it returns NA because there is nothing here. There is absolutely nothing here. If I type something like 0 there, then I have to redo this so that it reads 0 for me and extend my search area to include this column as well. But clearly you see that it does NA, and that's fine. I can delete NAs later. Okay, I can just find all of the NAs and replace them with something, or get rid of them, or not include them in my calculation. So if you don't know exactly how many columns you need, that's okay. Just select something more than what you need, and it's gonna fill the ones that there is no data for them with NA. And then you might be curious and say, well, what if you chose less than what you need? Then what would have happened? So if instead of 3 cells, I have chosen 2 cells, okay, and then apply this formula to it, Control Shift Enter, what happens? Nothing. Just you're not going to get the one that is in the last column. Okay, so it's not going to give you any NA, but you're going to miss some portion of the data. So always try this number of cells that you select to be more than what you need. Okay, so let's look at offset, and then we end up with the command lookup. So the command offset will give you data, a cell or several cells, a range, that are offset from some location, some address, some reference. So let's say I want to go and get everything below India in this whole range and return it or paste it somewhere else. Okay? How can I do that? So the way to go about it is, first of all, since what I'm doing is more than one cell, I have 12 cells, so I'm copying really a matrix. Remember, I have to do that technique with Control Shift Enter, right? So I want this, so this is what I do. First, I choose enough of cells for them, 12, just like they are 12, and I say equal to, and then here I say offset of, again, so this is equal to offset of. Where is your reference? This location here. How many, as you can see, rows and columns? How many rows do you want to go down? How many columns? I want to go one row down, but no columns. So I want to start right below India. And then how many data do you want to get? How many rows and how many columns do you want to copy? I want 3 rows and I want 4 columns, right? And then again, since I'm applying it to all of these cells, I do what? Control Shift Enter, and boom, I get them all. Okay. Now, you might say, well, what if you want it above India? What would you do? Let's say I wanted the 2 rows above India, or I just want these 2 numbers, these 4 numbers. So what do I do for those 4 numbers? I select these 4 cells, say this is equal to offset of Now I wanted India as reference, but this time I want to go above. How many rows do I go above to get the start of my area I want? I have to go 2 rows above, so I say -2. How many columns? No change in column, 0. I don't want to go to the right side, just right above India, 2 columns. And then what's the size of the data you are trying to get? 2 rows and 2 columns. Control Enter, Shift, Control Shift Enter. You see? Correct? So from this location, I go as many rows, as many columns as I want. I get an offset, and then from there, I copy and paste as many rows and as many columns as I want. Okay, so this command is rather a powerful command, offset. And okay, finally the command lookup, or you can use VLOOKUP in this case, but that does the same job here. As I said, there is VLOOKUP, which is vertical, looking into a column. There is HLOOKUP, looking into a row, and there is a new command called XLOOKUP, which can look in either direction. But here, I just want to show you the basic lookup. So here you have a bunch of grades from your class, and here are the grade boundaries, right? The lowest of the grade boundary. So F, the lowest is 0, and you can go to 60. A little bit below 60 is still F. Once you pass 60, you are going to be D until you get to 70. Once you pass 70, 70 or above 70, until you get to 80 or C. Same thing, 80 and past to a little bit below 90 is B, and then anything above 90 is going to be A. Okay, so now this is what I do. I say this is equal to lookup of this number into this list, find it, and then return the corresponding thing into this list. As you can see here, this command is doing the job of match and index at the same time. Okay, so it's more powerful than both of them, right? It is quite powerful. You can use it for in place of both of them, and you do that and say, well, 25 is F. Fine, let's extend it. 77 is a C, good. 55 is not a number again. What happened? I expected an F again. What happened? Well, that's the problem of referencing. Look, here this reference of D27 to D31 and E27 to A31 is not given as absolute. So when you go to next one, your next number is not going to be compared against this same list one more time. That list is now shifting down. And here the list is even shifted down again. So now this 55 is compared against only 80 and 90, and there is no number that it can match to, so it's not going to return anything. So you need to make sure when you are comparing these numbers against a fixed list, that list has to be what? Absolute address. So it has to be what? $D, $27, $D, $31, $E, $27, $E, $31. Otherwise, you are not going to get any good result. That is absolute differencing. And now if you bring it down, look. And now we can keep going down. You see? Works just fine. So be careful that you have to use absolute address. And now here could be the place that I explained. Remember I told you can select a bunch of numbers, a set of fixed locations, and give them a name, right? Define a name. What's the good about that? That's the good place is here. So here, since I need these locations to be fixed address for that command lookup, I select these 5 guys, right click and give them a name, and I call them maybe grade boundaries. Okay, and then I select these 5 guys and give them a name, maybe call them grade letters or letter grade, whatever you want to call it, letter grades or grade. And now look, I'll try to redo the same thing I did last time using the lookup, and I say look up this number, correct? And now look, if I select this list, instead of it just calling them D27 to D31, look what happens. It calls them the grade boundaries. The grade boundaries. It does not call them D27 to D31. And then look in this list. Again, it doesn't call them E27 to 31. Look, it calls them into letter grade. Right? Now look, F, correct? Now remember last time when I extended this down by 2 cells, I got messed up results because it was relative referencing. Now look, it doesn't, right? And if I go down all the way, I get the same thing that I did last time. So that's the advantage, that's the power of calling them names. This way, this group of cells that you gave them a name will get themselves an absolute address. And so when you extend your command down and expand it, it is not going to affect anything because it is using some absolute address. These variables have absolute address, they don't have relative address. So moving this and extending your equation to more cells is not going to affect them. And you clearly see that, right? When you select some stuff and you give them a name, if you look here, it is using a bunch of dollars. So it is using absolute address for the variables or for those names. Okay, and that's the advantage of using what? Using names and calling a bunch of variables a name. Now, I told you these important ones, and just wanted to show you one fancy thing, and then we go. So here I got this, and of course I can go and add colors, add borders, right? I showed you that in one of my previous videos, and make it like a nicer table. But instead of all that, what I can do is, instead of doing all that by myself, I can just grab that whole thing and then what? Try to convert that whole thing into a table, right? So I just go here and say format as table, And now I can use any of these formats of tables that are already available. Let's say I like this format, correct? Or this one, any color that I want. And it says, okay, those absolute addresses, yes, boom. You see how nice it is, right? Now, if you want, you can, of course, add borders or anything, right? You clearly can have more control over them. Or if you go here, can you add borders here? Yes, right? So it makes them a lot nicer. And then you even also have what? Drop downs here for some of those styles of table. Not all of them do, but some of them do. And this is quite a lot nicer looking table than just putting them on blank white background. Of course, it depends on what you want to achieve, but to me, this converting and formatting something as a table saves you time instead of you just doing all of the arrangement by yourselves and then add these elements, drop downs, which if you remember, you can do under developer, under insert, and you can do a bunch of things here. But I just thought this could be a useful item for you. Okay, so in the next videos, we're going to talk about logic and strings, and I have not forgotten that when I tried to sort this, it gave me some relative garbage, right? I expected it to go from A to Z, but it says Germany is ahead of United States, fine, but US is above Brazil. Well, this is U, this is B, so B should go up, but it didn't. So what's happening? I'll tell you in the video when we get to the strings, okay? But for now, just work on these lookups and try to use these 4 powerful commands. And when we get there, I'll talk more about strings and number values of them and so on. Thank you.